through some of the processes and procedures that we have to do, if that's okay. And first and foremost, as chair of this meeting, can I firstly apologise, but also thank you for allowing us to be able to change the time due to a previous meeting that I had to chair. So I really, really appreciate it. It was last minute, I promise. So I really do appreciate it. And I'll extend that to all of our visitors who join us as the meeting goes along as well. Okay, I just want to remind any colleagues online to keep their camera on, but keep themselves muted. And if you wish to speak, if you can just raise your virtual hand and begin to speak after I invite you in. Attendees in the chamber, you know the way that we work, guys. If you wish to speak or comment, please press your microphone, and then when invited in by myself, you will be able to speak. If for any reason any member of the committee needs to leave, then just indicate to myself. You can just do that by giving me a nod. That's absolutely okay. We're not actually voting on anything today. Okay, so we're okay as far as anybody just needing to leave at any particular time, in or out. And all officers and guests who are joining us remotely, we're all okay. And everybody in the chamber is all ready to run. Okay, so I'll officially start the meeting. Prynawn da pawb, welcome to this learning meeting on Monday the 25th of November. Please note this meeting may be recorded and broadcast via the authority's internet site. And on that point, I would just like to note that it will be viewed and observed by Hugh, one of our inspection team from Estin. He sadly couldn't join us this afternoon. He was going to and observe the meeting, but when I had to change the timings, it just clashed with his diary then as well. So my sincere apologies for that, but he will actually be observing the meeting as part of that process and relationship that we have with Estin. Okay, guys? So just to remind you all of that. What I'd also like to do is obviously welcome. We have a number of officers with us today. But joining us, we also have Lyndon and Chair of Governors, Gareth Morgan. They'll be coming in just a second from Cyfarthfa High School. And from our PRU, we have Simon and Chair of Governors Chris joining us as well. So welcome to you both. And then, of course, from Central South, we have Helen, Louise, and I'm looking down, and Natalie. There we are, all to my left. Welcome, everybody. And so we'll just go on and then we'll just follow the agenda as it is, and then we'll invite our Cyfarthfa High School guests in once we've gone through the process of the reports. Item number 1 on the agenda is any apologies for absence. Noted, I have apologies from Lawrence and Jacob. And we have Hannah online, just in case you're missing Hannah in the chamber. But I'd also like to make a warm welcome to Councillor David Isaac and Councillor Michelle Jones, who are joining us at our scrutiny. Welcome to the scrutiny. Nice to see you this afternoon. And of course, joining us alongside Jill, who we welcomed a couple of weeks ago as well. Okay. Okay, bear with me a sec. Claire, I do apologise. I didn't see you because my laptop was in front of the screen.
That if there's somebody online, and are we expecting somebody online for us to put the screens on because the screens aren't on? Do we just put it? There is somebody online, yeah. Thank you.
Is it on now? Okay, you're welcome. And I'm just going to move my laptop so I can see that you've seen back. I couldn't quite stretch over and see your mic was on, so apologies, Claire. Okay, second item on the agenda, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Jeff?
Yes, Chair. We've got the Cyfarthfa High School coming in before us, and I have to declare I'm a member of the Executive Committee of the Governors of the High School.
Thank you for noting that, Jeff. As you know, you're more than welcome to stay during that conversation, but thank you for noting that. Okay, agenda item number 3 then is to look at our Estin inspections. Oh, sorry, apologies, Nat.
I did press, sorry, Lisa. I've got a child in Cyfarthfa High School, so obviously I'm not here as a parent for that school. I'm here as a member of the committee, but just to say that my child's in Cyfarthfa.
That's absolutely fine, no problem at all. Thank you. Okay, let me just double check. No other declarations of interest? No, we're all okay. All right, we'll move on then. Agenda item number 3, Eston inspections, those that happened during the cycle 23-24. And I believe I'm going to my right, and Councillor Gareth Lewis, our Cabinet Member for Education, is going to take us through the report. Yeah. Thank you, Gareth.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. This report provides an overview of the outcomes of Eston inspections for the last academic year, 2023-24. The framework used for the last year had 5 inspection areas: learning, teaching and learning experiences, care, support and guidance, and finally, leadership. Eston no longer provide judgments as outcomes for inspection areas, so the excellent, good, satisfactory, etc. are no more, allowing school into a follow-up category to require significant improvement or placed into special measures if necessary. During the last academic year, a total of 7 schools had full inspections, 2 secondary schools and 5 primary schools. Of the primary schools, Troedrew, Coed Derwyn, Ysgol Santes Tydfil and Tynerodyn did not require any follow-up activity. Penydre High School did not require any follow-up activity either and were invited to prepare a case study. Cyfarthfa High School was placed into a statutory category and judged to require special measures and will receive termly monitoring from Eston over a 2-year duration. And reports on the progress made can be found in Appendix 2 of the report. The T-Dysgu PRU, Pupil Referral Unit, remains in a statutory category. The appointment of a new head of centre has led to greater personnel stability, and reports on progress on this can be found in Appendix 3 of the report. A new Eston framework was introduced from September 24, and schools will have a core inspection and an interim inspection visit within the 6-year inspection period. And Havant High School received an interim visit as part of the pilot arrangements. The recommendations are outlined in section 2.1 of the report, and that is that the report is discussed and noted. Back over to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Gareth. Okay, thank you. So, first of all, with regards to, if we go to the actual paper, 5.11 regarding the T-Dysgu PRU, I would like to officially welcome Lyndon and Simon and Chris, who are in front of me, to the meeting. Simon and Chris, did you want to add anything to Gareth's update with regards to that report, or happy for me to go straight to any questions? Okay, cool. Okay. Colleagues online and in the chamber, you've heard our Cabinet Members' opening address on that particular report, and we do, as I said, have Simon and Chris with us. Are there any questions in relation to this report, but this particular area of education as well? Paul?
Are you saying that we're discussing now T-Dysgu, or are we talking then about the overarching report?
T-Dysgu at this point,
Okay.
And then Cyfarthfa High School, and then we'll do the overarching report in that order, if that's okay, just because our friends have visited us at a later time than that was specified, so I'm just mindful of their presence.
Understood.
No. If there aren't any questions then from any of my colleagues, I have some passed on from our colleague Lawrence, if that's okay. Just bear with me. It's with regards to recommendation 2, with regards to T-Dysgu, to strengthen the quality of strategic leadership to ensure the PRU's self-evaluation systems identifies priorities for improvement that are aligned to raising standards of learning and well-being. It states in the inspection report that the management committee, whilst demonstrating a commitment to supporting leaders, it does not challenge the strategic leadership of the PRU well enough. And so Lawrence's questions were, why isn't there a mention of how the management committee is involved in strengthening the strategic leadership, first of all? Chris, do you want me to read that again? Yeah, so why isn't there a mention of how the management committee is involved in strengthening the strategic leadership?
I'm not sure why there isn't a mention in that, Chair. The management committee was refreshed after the inspection in order to strengthen the representation both from schools and at the point in time when I took over the chair role as well. And there's been significant change in personnel during that time, which meant that it was quite unstable as a management committee. And literally, it's within the last sort of 6 or 8 months that Simon's been with us, where it's actually started to question far more the progress that is being made, because it's a far more stable staff group now. What we had was a staff group which was really disrupted. I'm trying to think of the word you used the other day, Simon. They were really, what's the word? Disrupted in their own well-being, disrupted in the way the provision was operating. Unsettled, that'll be a great word. Due to the amount of changes that they'd seen over a period of time. So there was a requirement really to get them settled down and operating back as a team and having a shared vision, which, you know, Simon has really achieved. And I sat with the group a fortnight ago, and I sat with them again on Friday, and they are a completely different feel to that team. And I think that's giving the platform really for some of the implementation that Simon's now doing. So I think the other challenge with the management committee is it is still quite a small management committee, and it quite often is on the borders of being quorate or not quorate. So there is discussions ongoing now about how we expand that management committee in order to make sure that meetings are not cancelled at short notice because of lack of numbers. So I think it's strengthened since the last inspection elements that have come through.
And Chris, just in relation to that last point then, is there or are there moves then to help management committee understand how to challenge appropriately then, so they can fully understand and endorse, you know, the rationale for decisions being made?
I think we've, as per the governor training, the management committee had a directed towards all of the governor training as provided by the governor support team. But also, the elements is that a lot of the management committee members are heads of our primary schools and heads of our secondary, because part of that work was about trying to make them as link officers as well to the developments within the PRU. So they're quite attuned to that challenge, and there's been more challenge, I would say, over the last 6 months. Certainly when we looked at the structure of the staffing within the PRU, myself, one of the heads from the secondary and from the primary, really scrutinised the structure that was being proposed to make sure that we had a balance across both those elements in terms of primary and secondary, and leads for curriculum. So it was very much a constructive analysis of what the proposals Simon was bringing forward in order to actually say, well, do we think this is the right structure for the PRU moving forward? So I think that as a process has got better, but the governor support is there in terms of for anybody like myself, for instance, who has never done the governor role before. But you know, there are individuals on the management committee who are well versed within that as both primary and secondary heads.
Thank you, Chris. Colleagues, Councillor Michelle Jones.
It's just a quick question, really. How is your staffing now? Are you all fully staffed? Because obviously I appreciate it's a very difficult setting to get staffed with the right type of staff. So I was just wondering if you've managed to sort that.
She's fitted in nicely, so that's going well. I've made 3 internal appointments for 2 behaviour managers and a vocational programme manager, and they were appointed last Friday, the 15th, sorry. So those posts are great. And I've got a deputy head appointment this Friday, the 29th, so that should be the final piece for the moment. So, and there's some good candidates. So at the moment, I'm quite comfortable with how things have gone so far with appointments.
That's great, because I think if you've got a good team in place, then you're going to be able to move forward.
You've got a chance then, haven't you?
So good luck.
Yeah.
And just adding on to that, I think, you know, the bit that I made comment on about the staff team are really far more settled now than I've seen them since I started with linking with the PRU. And that settled element has actually meant that they've been prepared to take on those additional responsibilities and formalise into those positions. So it's been a real pleasure to see, even in that short time, the distance that they are travelling as a team.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff?
Chris, you were saying that you had governing body and head teachers, etc. on that. Have you got lay members apart from yourself on there? And how many have you got on there? What's your vacancies, etc., etc., please, Chris?
In terms of lay members, there are really only two what I would call lay members. There's myself and Matthew. I can't think of his second name now. Who's a safety Davis, Matthew Davis from Children's Services, and there's Declan Salmon, who's also on the committee. The rest are high heads from primary and secondary, and that's where the question has been raised in terms of how do we increase some numbers around that whilst balancing that off with the provision is quite, or has been quite precarious until now, in terms of we would have potentially wanted a school rep, we would have wanted a parent rep, sort of thing, but actually we were not in a position to be able to really bring that in a safe sort of way at this point in time.
Can I come in there,
Chris.
Jeff, if you don't mind? When the setting was placed into special measures, we took the decision to actually almost put in an executive management committee to make sure there was more. It was tighter. So I think we are in a place now where we can look to widen that management committee for the reasons that Chris has said. It's slightly different to a governing body, although it carries out the functions, but it's a management committee because the setting actually is a local authority. So it is slightly different, but we are looking to expand that because of the situation the setting is in. It wasn't in the position for us to be able to look to expand that prior to now.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jeff. Natalie?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. So are there any risks, such as, say, threats or barriers to achieving your next steps, or kind of sort of making sure you don't kind of fall back in any way?
None that I can see, in a sense. I feel comfortable where we're at the moment. I think the appointment of the deputy head is going to be really important to sort of push us further on at a better pace with things. But with the staffing structure in place, there's nothing I can envisage that is a problem at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just add on to that?
Yeah.
It's probably, from a management committee perspective, I would probably say there is, we've got provision on various sites. That obviously is a challenge to manage, and making sure that continues to progress in the way that it has. One that Sue's mentioned, which is about the expansion of the management committee. I think that for me as the chair, I think is a risk because there's a danger at the moment with it, and absolutely that keeping it tight. But there is always that risk of not being quorate, and therefore that impacting upon decisions that can be made, and then the pace of things that Simon can get things driven through in terms of changes. So that for me is a risk at the management committee level, I would say.
Okay, deal.
Thank you, Nat. Michelle?
It's just on the back of Natalie's question there. How are your pupils and staff coping with the disruption that you've had to endure in regards to the change of use of buildings? Because I believe that you're having to. Are you the head of T-Dysgu, Auntie Humphrey?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're having to use the 3Gs building as well at
Yeah.
the moment while the building work is carried out. How is that going at the moment? Because obviously there was concerns raised around the safeguards and everything of the children in that building that we're having to utilise.
Better than expected is perhaps the answer to that. I think initially in September it did seem quite a challenge, but I think the staff have worked really hard together to make sure it's worked, and at the moment it seems to be working well. We'll be glad to go to a new building, I will say that, which will be a permanent home as it were, but we're surviving that, it's working okay.
Great news, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I can't see that anybody else has indicated to ask any questions, particularly around T-Dysgu. Let me just double check if there are any other questions. No? Okay. So any comments or observations around T-Dysgu? No? Oh, Michelle. Michelle and then Claire. I can see you now, Claire.
I think you've taken on a massive challenge, and both of you really, and I just want you to know that you have our full support, and we're very grateful for the hard work that no doubt this is going to take over the next however long it takes. Ultimately, what you're doing is for the children, and we're really grateful. So you have our full support, and it isn't going to be easy. You've got lots of challenges ahead, but I just want to offer you our good luck and our support. And if there's anything we can do to help you, assist you, like Rosina said, there's any barriers, then let us know so that we can try and help you any way we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Claire.
Exactly the same as what Michelle was going to say, and I think, you know, first of all, I have met you and I welcome. You know, it isn't an easy task that you've taken on, the both of you, and like, I just want to reiterate what Michelle is saying. You have our full support. You know, if there's anything you think that we can do, please let us know, because we're not ogres or anything, and we are there to, you know, to support you, and I wish you all the very best. So thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Claire. Natalie.
Yeah, second what they've said as well. I just wanted a comment, I suppose, from where we are this year, this academic year, to where we were last academic year. Last academic year, Gavin presented to us. And this year now we've got a head in place, we've got a chair in place. That in itself is an achievement. And I just think it feels positive. So I wanted to add that in there. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, can I just say, just really for clarity, really, it does feel different in the setting, and it's down to Simon. Simon's the one there day in, day out. As a chair, Simon and I will converse on different things, and I'll chair the meetings, and we'll analyse stuff and pull it apart. But Simon's obviously there on the front line with the young people, with his staff. And I got to say, in testament to Simon, I know he hasn't been there that long, but it does have a different feel from the staff team. I sat with them Friday. Sat with them a couple of weeks ago about the vision they have for the PRU, and that was the important thing for me, is the way that Simon's worked with them for them to develop their vision of what they want for the young people and what they want. So there's some ownership within the staff team, and it does feel different with them, and that really is the foundation for moving forward. So, you know, whilst people say thank you to me, Simon's the one doing all the hard work up there, really.
Thank you, Chris. Just a note from me as chair to you both. I think it's important to recognise that within the body of the report we had that just additional appendix, just noting the monitoring visit from June, progress made to date, of which you've made reference to and some of my colleagues have made reference to. And I think it is important to note that and recognise that, and also just some of the comments that have made as well. You know, we have some of our most hardest to reach vulnerable young people attending T Dysgu and T Humphrey. And so, you know, whilst all of our staff in all of our schools sometimes face some challenges, I think, you know, we all recognise some of the difficult challenges here. And it really is fantastic to see the difference to where we are already within a short period of time, and giving a nod obviously to the LA support, but obviously to Chris as chair, and especially as Simon now in his role. And I think in doing so, all you have to do really is look at impact so far. And that is important to note as well, because, you know, when we're looking at an Eston inspection, when we're looking at the difference in the journey that a school has been on following an Eston inspection, an inspector will always say, so what? Who cares? So what? Tell me what the truth is in black and white. And so it's important to have these meetings, and it's important to see the impact so far. And just noting some of them: reduced volume of staff concerns, improved logging of safeguarding concerns, deeper understanding of the safeguarding process and outcomes. So vitally important in this environment, isn't it? Improved communication and staff voice. You know, you have to go on this journey, not just as a chain ahead, but you have to take your staff with you. You know, you have to be a partnership together. That's really important. And of course, improved site safety. And we really do hope that you're in your new site as soon as possible. But well done to you guys on, you know, managing that transition as it stands at the moment. So all noted. Thank you, colleagues, for your questions and comments. And thank you again to Simon and Chris for joining us this afternoon and just giving us that update as to where we are so far. And we look forward to having further updates with you as well, and maybe even a site visit as well for Scrutiny. I think it's so important to go out and actually see it for itself, how it is for the head, for the teaching staff, for the governors, etc. But most importantly, how it is for our young people. Okay, so we'll note that for a future perhaps visit as well. Thank you both. You are more than welcome to stay. You are more than welcome to leave. Chris Hole, I've never seen you pack up so quick in my life. Thank you, Chris. We'll just pause for a minute while our other guests join us, guys, if that's okay. Okay, welcome back everybody. Welcome to our guests. We have Lyndon, head teacher at Cyfarthfa High School. Welcome. And we have Gareth, the chair of governors at Cyfarthfa High School as well. Welcome to you both. We've introduced the Estyn inspection report, the cycle of inspections 23-24. Our cabinet member, Councillor Gareth Lewis, did that for us. And then just by way really of seeing what our process is, our journey is like to date, we just had an update from our colleagues at Dusky, and now we're welcoming you both to really have an update with regards to where Cyfarthfa High School is at this point in time. So, back to my colleagues, my scrutiny colleagues, within the body of the report, similarly to Dusky, we'll have an overall update of the Estyn inspection cycle and the Estyn inspections that happened last year. And then specifically around Cyfarthfa High School, some of the recommendations that were made by the Estyn inspection team, and then notably then an update that brings us further down on the journey following the inspection. So I'll open it up to questions first of all. Colleagues, are there any questions with relation to Cyfarthfa High School? Paul.
Thank you very much. Can I just start with clarification, please? The improvement report that we've had, it says the date of inspection report was the 23rd of May 24. Is that a typo? Or was it not March when you were inspected?
You're on. It's okay. It's gone.
Yeah.
You're on.
23rd of May, I think, was when it was published.
Okay.
So the inspection was in March, but this report was published in May.
Thank you very much. I've read the report then with interest. And by the way, just for you to know, I've recently been there with Gethley Dialogue, so I know what the process is like. There's a number of references then to improvements. For the record, could you explain then who is stating that we have the improvements? Are you getting any independent advice in terms of where you were and where you are at this moment in time?
Okay. Do you want me to look at any particular recommendation to start, or do you want to just walk me through it?
If we go then with R2, then self-evaluation.
Okay. I suppose it's linked into R1 effectively. In R1, the structure at the time wasn't an effective structure. There were non-subject specialists leading key subject areas. the leadership team had gone through a period of change. We had the deputy head had been off on the 6th since October 2nd. There was quite a bit of turmoil in the leadership team at that point in time when they came in. But in terms of the middle leadership and in terms of recommendation 2, I think one of the key areas for us was that there was an inflated view within the middle leadership of where the school was and where departments were. We'd recognised that. We'd already started to take steps to change those views, but in the restructure that we'd put through, which was already basically done before Estin came in, we held it back because we knew that there were some people who were going to be quite disaffected by the outcome of the leadership leadership restructure, and so that has changed the roles and responsibilities into a much tighter focus for us. We now have people who are understanding of the departmental improvement structure, people who are understanding of where the departments are and where individual staff are within our improvement process. So I think in terms of recommendation 2, it does follow on from recommendation 1, but if you look at a subject like English, English in the previous regime was led by a French teacher who didn't teach English, didn't speak Welsh, but led English, French and Welsh. If you look at maths, it was led by the ICT teacher who was based in a different block to maths. So as it is now, we have English specialist, we have a director, an assistant head teacher director of English as well. We have a head of maths and numeracy, and we have an assistant head teacher director of maths and numeracy. So the structures that we've put in place support what we could see was a deficit in understanding of the actual situation the school had found itself in, and a lack of skill set to take us forward in the way that I wanted it to. So that's a big difference between then and now, a very big difference. The data that we were creating before, I think, was going through too many hands and was inaccurate. So you would see data from different terms changing, gradually reducing, and then ending up lower again at the end in terms of outcomes for the school. So that was something that we had recognised, and we put steps in place to change. Teaching and learning, which is fundamentally what we're about, wasn't run effectively, and the skill sets on the leadership team weren't really developing teaching and learning in the school, certainly not in the way that we wanted it to. Again, we brought in a new deputy head. He's running teaching and learning for me now, and it's a very, very different situation that we're in now than we've been in my the early part of my time here.
Thank you for that. If I can, evaluation and self-evaluation is a theme, I think, that is running then through a number of schools at this moment in time, and I'm really interested. The result of the inspection, therefore, are you saying was no great surprise to yourself?
I think the school has improved during the time that I've been there and has made some improvements, but certainly I would say that the leadership structure that Estin came in and saw, with deputy head teacher had been off for 8 months. I had an acting deputy who was on a 1-term sabbatical contract, didn't know the children, didn't know the school per se. I'd lost an assistant head teacher in December who was capable, and we had gone out to advert. We had tried to recruit, but we didn't get any. We had 20 odd applications. We interviewed 6. Nobody made it through to the afternoon. We didn't have the quality that we wanted for the type of job that we wanted to do. The roles that some of the people had been taking were difficult for them with the skill sets that they had to be successful in it. And I think the structure itself didn't lend itself to the outcomes that we wanted. It does now. I think the recruitment that we've made, the recruitments we've made are strong. They've made a positive impact in the autumn term, and we're already looking at some significant outcomes improvements in this coming year.
Okay, so CSE support from the improvement partner, did they indicate to you then the areas that were likely then to come under close scrutiny and comment then from Estin at the time?
Yeah, we've worked closely with CSC colleagues. I think they recognised that we had weaknesses in teaching and learning and self-evaluation. It was something that I'd agreed with, and that we were working on to try and improve that. As I say, with the leadership team that we had in place prior to the inspection, it was a lot more difficult to make those changes that we needed to make. The leadership team that we have now is very different, and we've got a far greater understanding of not just where we are, but what we need to do to improve and make the impact and make the improvements. So yeah, we've worked closely, but I think the improvement partner would have seen certainly weaknesses in skills, in teaching and learning, and in self-evaluation, and he was fully aware, obviously, of where the leadership team was in terms of the people that had left and not been replaced, and people on sick, etc.
Thank you. One question before I give way. I'll probably come back later if I can. Just for the record, for anybody who's listening to this recording, then, when did you take a post as head teacher at the school?
September 22.
Right. Thank you very much.
Yes, it's always a problem, attendance. Have you noticed any improvement in the attendance just recently? I suppose with this bad weather, it doesn't help really, but...
The bad weather definitely doesn't help. Our attendance was 86.1% last year. The current attendance for the first term is 91.6%, so it's quite a bit higher. But then most schools are improving as well. I think we are. We've got some new additions that the authority has put in place to help us out with attendance. We've got 2 new members of staff that are working particularly with persistent absentees, because we do have a large number of persistent absentees. Since COVID, attendance is very different than it was prior to COVID, it's when you've got a very large number of persistent absentees, and up until this year, one person trying to deal with all of that, it's very difficult for them to get around and make meaningful impact in some of those areas. But yeah, attendance at the moment, in answer to your question, has improved. But for me, that's pre-COVID, that would still be quite a low figure. Yeah. Now it's a significant improvement, but it's not. And if we don't have children in school, it's always going to, there's not much we can do in terms of teaching and learning if we haven't got them inside.
I suppose it's the case like elsewhere. You have a small number of people that miss school a lot that affects your figures, really, yeah. I suppose.
We have that, but we also have too many pupils missing, occasional days or missing occasional lessons too. As I say, at 91.2, we're comparable with other schools in our area and in our family now, but we've got work to do. We need to get that up.
Thanks.
Thank you, Clive. Colleagues, are there any other questions for Cyfarthfa High School? Natalie?
As I asked the last group that were in, are there any risks such as threats or barriers to achieving and sort of prevent you from falling back in any way?
At the moment, I've got a maths department of 5, and I've got 2 off on medium-term sick. It's very, very difficult to recruit quality supplies. We have got a guy who's quite strong and is a maths specialist. That's difficult to do. They're not areas I can control. One lady is pregnant and goes through a very difficult pregnancy. So it does make the job quite difficult. And the other one's gone through some quite difficult home life and has got other issues with that. My third maths teacher is going in for an operation in the just of 3 out of 5. So yeah, that's perfect storm for me in maths and numeracy. But we are mitigating that. We are changing people around. We are bringing in people from other. We are supporting, unfortunately, Key Stage 4 over Key Stage 3 because they're the ones who've got the outcomes coming up in the summer, and we have to support those. We are a very lean staff body now. I went to see another school that recently come out of measures last week. They have 500 pupils. I have 800. They have over 100 hours spare on their timetable. I have 5 hours spare on my timetable. So we don't have the ability to take people out and do things, and that is a problem for us. That we you know, in an ideal world, I'd have a lot more spare time and I'd be able to direct people to do what I want to do, go in and team teach, go in and watch a lesson, go in and prepare resources, etc., that you're not able to do when it's as tight as it is and finances are as tight as they are. We're still very reliant on key people on site. We're building the leadership and the capacity of the leadership, but again, if we had significant absence, that would be a problem for us at the moment, and it's not easy to bring people in from outside. We've recruited well. The deputy is excellent. I'm really happy with what he's brought to the group, and we work well together. The leadership team is the most cohesive it's ever been by some distance, and there isn't an inflated lack of understanding of where we are, which is what we've lived with up till now. So now we haven't got to, bring people back down to earth. Everybody knows where we are, and everybody's striving to improve from where we are.
I think if I could add, I think one other risk factor is finance. And I'm sure you know better than I do the financial problems that Merthyr has. But as far as those have hit the schools, it does cause significant problems, but I'm sure you are well aware of that.
Thank you. And then also, for both of you, I suppose, as governors, have you made any changes within the governing body, or have you sort of put anything else in place? And I know we've got Jeff sat next to me, but what have you done to support your next steps?
Well, the main thing that we've done as a governing body is to create an executive body to deal specifically with the post-inspection action plan, with a separate chair of that body. It's not me, it's Donna Williams.
Okay.
So we have set up a specific body to monitor the movement from the school, and we have 2 governors delegated to specifically look and monitor and evaluate each of the 6 recommendations. And we've also had the benefit of assistance from the local authority, which was helped enormously, and we've also had added to the governing body Mr. Jeff Fish, the regional governor, to add his experience. So there's been considerable changes in the governing body to try and monitor and move the school out of special measures as soon as we can.
Thank you. Thank you, Natalie. Paul, back to you.
Thank you very much. If I can come back then to recommendation 3, in particular then, professional learning then and standards of teaching, which you've touched on already. I note in your report that you're talking about lessons observations which will take place before Christmas. Is that not something that was routinely happening before?
So yes, in the previous regime, I think we had more lesson observations, less what I would call learning walks, and more official lesson observations with notice, and you do a full hour. We are bringing that in. We are doing lesson observations of a full hour. We're in a program at the moment where we're going through that, but you can pretty much see everything you need to see by learning walks going in at the beginning and the end and seeing what progress has been made in between. If you're a skilled observer, you can do that. We don't have the necessary skills. So the reason we're doing those lesson observations now is to use it as part of the professional learning program to upskill our middle leaders to get their view of what they've just seen and then triangulate it with what the senior leadership's view is of what we've just seen, to make sure that we haven't got inflated views of lessons that are taking place. So yeah, there is a very different teaching and learning program now. We've tried to simplify it. We've tried to really hone in on the departmental time and departmental leadership of teaching and learning, and the staff's understanding of what good teaching and learning looks like, what good questioning looks like, because there were some gaps in that, and Estin rightly picked up on some of that, but we'd already picked up on that, and I think it's not something you change overnight, but we've already made some pretty strong strides, and I think Estin recognised that when they came in and went around different departments.
Can I come on to that again then from the aspect of CSC? have they not been providing you with support then with lessons observations and making comments then on the quality of the teaching being provided?
So obviously we have the improvement partner. The improvement partner is a very skilled individual. He's worked at high level within school, and he has a similar view on what good teaching and learning looks like that I do. So that works well together. We've had support from Central South up until the summer in English, Maths and Science. So we've had people coming in to work with our departments in those areas and develop teaching and learning in it. I don't think they were coming back with a report saying teacher X needs work in this or teacher Y is not able to do that. It was more just working with them and trying to generally improve standards within those areas. As I say, with the changes that we've made to the departments, I think the view is to give the assistant head teacher directors and the new head of English and Maths opportunity to drive their own stall first, and then we'll review it with Central South to see if there's anything to be gained. But we're already having a lot of people are involved. A lot of things are happening, things like this, where we're going into various meetings and structures. Gareth talked about the executive board. We have the forum. We have the multi-agency meetings. So there's a lot going on for leaders and staff to be involved with, and we need them to sort of pare it back and just for the staff themselves to focus on developing teaching and learning, which is the core part of what we do. And I think we have made strides in that. I think in as much as we could have in the period of time, I think we really have made strides in that area.
Okay, if I can go on to that then, because I'm interested in that professional development plan that you have. Who takes the lead for you in that respect? Because you're a busy man. Is that delegated to somebody else?
To drive teaching and learning on site.
Yes.
Yeah, the deputy head teacher is driving teaching and learning on site, and I've tried to free him up from other things to give him more time. So this week he's out and about doing lesson observations, most lessons, and last week. But yeah, he's driving that for me on site, and he's driving the professional learning program with the staff on staff inset on the Monday night program that we have as well. So yeah, he's got the full remit for that, and he's an able and capable guy, and he's been a really good.
So each member of your team then would have their own development plan at this moment.
Yeah. So we have we've also restructured the way that it worked. So in the previous regime, the assistant head teachers were all given different subject areas to line manage and to keep an eye on teaching and learning within those subject areas within their line management process. We've reduced that now down to I line manage the assistant head teacher director of Maths and English, and Ben and Tracy, who's in charge of standards, they line manage all the other academic subjects between them, and then we've changed the structure. We simplified it. It's a lot flatter, and we've empowered the middle leaders to make change in the areas that they're at. And so far, that's proven to be a good recipe.
Thank you. I've just got one other area, if I may, for area of questioning. In the written report, in the text, there's no mention of a governing body taking any responsibility or assisting then with learning walks, etc. We've heard from the chair then that the governing body is more effective now. Are the governing body invited in then to participate then in lessons observations, just then to show their presence?
I think it's been a new process for us, and we are doing it at the moment, and we're getting the staff on board with people coming in and out their lessons frequently. Our staff have been really receptive to it so far. We've had no kickback against people in and out. We haven't brought governors in yet into teaching and learning, but that is the plan moving forward, to bring governors on board and coming around and seeing lessons as well.
So in essence, you're saying it's too soon?
I think at the moment we've got to keep the staff with us. We've managed to do that. When you get this sort of outcome, everybody takes it personally. Some people blame somebody else, but everyone takes it a little bit personally, and staff understandably can be quite reticent to have people in and out of their classrooms on a regular basis when they're not prepared for it. Going back to your previous question about lesson observations, they tended to be with a 2 weeks notice period. Member staff can prepare that lesson within an inch of his life, and it's not reflective of what you see in day out. the books are. We do a lot stronger book scrutiny now than we were doing in the previous regime. And we're, like I say, we're developing a culture where teaching and learning is at its heart, and we're trying to improve teaching and learning rather than criticize teaching and learning as we're going in. We're trying to focus on what we can do to make it better and to improve the diet that our pupils have.
Could I make one point about the role of the governors in this? As I say, there's 2 governors allocated to each of the recommendations from the executive board, but each of the governors will be discussed it and understand they have to see actual evidence of improvement. It's not sufficient for Linda to tell me everything's okay. Each governor has to know that their recommendation is being dealt with, and they must satisfy themselves that they see the actual evidence of progress in that area, not simply being told that there's progress in that area.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay. Hannah and then Michelle.
Hi all. I'm keen to know, are any of your leadership team ESTIN trained to support driving teaching and learning forward? Because it sounds at the moment that it's only the deputy head leading on teaching and learning rather than they actually being a team supporting in school.
Okay.
That's my question one.
Right. So yes, the assistant head teacher is ESTIN trained and has done ESTIN inspections. And has been out and about doing that. She leads on skills for me, so she's very much involved in the development of teaching and learning. We've also got an associate assistant head teacher who is my head of physics, who is who works alongside Ben in developing teaching and learning throughout the school. So we have got delegated empowerment, but logically we need to build up the skills of the middle leadership so they can develop teaching and learning in their own subject areas. And that's what we're working sort of closely towards at the moment.
So would there be then sort of the head of department doing observations parallel with the deputy head, so that actually there is continuity across observations?
So all the lesson observations going on this week and last are with the deputy head teacher and the head of department, or with the associate assistant head teacher and the head of department, because part of the point of them is, one, obviously to get an evaluation of where we are, but it's also to train up the middle leaders in what good teaching and learning looks like and how it could be improved within the lesson that they've just seen.
That's lovely, thank you. I'd also like to ask, how are you monitoring staff well-being? Because obviously you've gone through a very challenging period, and the documentation shows that there is some improvement made. How are staff feeling throughout this? I mean, what are staff absences? Like you've said that there's quite a few going on, but how are your staff feeling?
Could I just, before Lyndon answers, the governing body is obviously concerned about staff well-being and how they are dealing with all the pressures that come on. And the governing body passed 2 resolutions. One was that we were going to have a well-being meeting with members of staff. This was going to be arranged by the staff governors, who would invite as many members of staff as they thought were appropriate. And then I and the deputy chair, Donna Williams, would attend that meeting. It wouldn't be a minuted meeting, but we would get feedback from the staff how they were feeling, and we would then feedback in the generality of it. And that was the first decision we made. The second was that we are going to carry out an anonymised survey for each member of staff to complete if they wish. There's no compulsion about it, but we're going to carry out this survey, and we're going to then see what the staff feel and how they are feeling about this this process. I have to say that the governors are concerned, very concerned, about the well-being of the staff during this process.
Yeah, look, staff absence as a measure of well-being is a bit blunt, and the 2 staff absences that I spoke of earlier are not linked to the school or the situation we're in. One is a pregnancy-related one, and one was from a bereavement. So they impact on my school, but they're not as a direct result of well-being linked into the situation we found. If anything, the staff have been really resilient, and ESTIN commented on that when they came in for the revisit. that they thought the staff were sort of up for the fight and desperate to improve. It is something we have to monitor. We try to pare things back. We try to make sure that we don't put too many things on them. We're trying to obviously take as much of the onus on ourselves as we can, as a leadership team, and myself and Ben in particular. But yeah, it is a difficult time for staff when they're going through this process. Nobody wants to be in this process. It's professionally challenging, and so yeah, we do take the temperature of the staff frequently. We do have meetings regularly every half term where we ask the staff to just come in and talk about that. We've got, as part of our line management, well-being is now established within line management meetings to make sure that people's first port of call is to check on how staff are doing. But I'm very conscious of the fact that people often say they're doing okay right up to the point where they say they're not. So we are, as I say, we are very concerned about the well-being of the staff. So far, they seem to have responded really well. And as I say, taking away things like the high stakes lesson observations with critical grading at the end of it, the staff have been quite supportive of the fact that we're not doing that, and we are just trying to improve incrementally and give them things that they can do and strategies that they can do to improve and get to where we want them to be.
Thank you. That was lots of information, so I do appreciate that. My last question is, how can you explain how student leadership impacts on your teaching and learning in Cyfarthfa?
Okay. If I'm honest, it was a weakness, student leadership impacting on teaching and learning. We had a student council, but it was more responsible for fundraising and other activities. So we've restructured again, we'd already put this in place, but we restructured the student leadership team over the summer, and now we have a senior leadership team, and then we've split the leadership into 3 areas, one of which is teaching and learning. So the pupils are actually asked for their opinions, and they are involved, not just in, as they would have been previously, in interviewing for new staff and that sort of thing, but we're actually looking at teaching and learning and empowering them to come back and tell us what we can do differently, what we can do better, and how teaching and learning looks from their viewpoint. So it is new for us. We've started it. We recruited the teams over the summer, and obviously we recruited the teams in the other year groups in the first half of the autumn term. But that's sort of a specific team within the student leadership group now, looking specifically at teaching and learning, which is not something that we had done previously.
So will the students then receive training to actually be able to do this? Because obviously not everyone can observe and comment on teaching and learning in a professional way where staff don't feel targeted, because obviously it's a very precious area, isn't it, to deliver teaching and learning and then have someone make comments on it. And students are not professionals, they're young people, and we value their views. But how can you give us the reassurance that they're doing it in a manner that is appropriate for what is needed for your school to improve?
Yeah, so the lady that's running that for us is the one who's ESTIN trained and been on ESTIN inspections. So she knows how to handle that from an ESTIN type perspective. I can't stop pupils being brutally honest. They have a habit of doing that, whatever training I put in place. What I can do is take what they say and turn it into something that's useful and helps us to improve the school. I think at the moment it's starting to work well. It's in its infancy, but it's starting to work well, and the pupils will grow in confidence with the year as it goes by, and help us to improve teaching and learning from their perspective. But as I say, it is in its infancy, but we have restructured the entire student leadership, and it's far more rigorous now, and it's far more useful to them and useful to us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hannah. Lyndon and Gareth, my sincere apologies. I realised that you just had this voice and not able to see Hannah on your screen, so my sincere apologies to you both. But she's there. I can see her. Okay, Michelle, over to you.
Thank you. I wanted to ask around the same questions as Hannah's touched upon. Obviously, you said that your maths department, you've struggled obviously because of staffing issues, which is understandable, these things happen. But what about the other departments? How is your staffing structure there now? Only, I'm just asking, like, you know, because when my daughter was in Cyfarthfa, she went 6 months without a geography teacher going up into her GCSEs, and it was obviously a nightmare for her. So I'm just wondering now how your departments are structured in regards to their staffing. And my second question is just in regards to pupil numbers. Obviously, you're struggling with your budget, as most schools are, but your budget is going to improve if you have higher pupil numbers. What's the catchment area in regards to the children coming from the Cyfarthfa catchment? Are they starting to come back to Cyfarthfa now, or is there still higher numbers going to other comprehensive schools, for example, Penydre?
Okay. In terms of the structures, you're quite right. We are a smallish school. We have quite a broad curriculum, and in some areas that means that you've got a single person on site that is the specialist in that area. In other areas we've got backup, and sometimes with leadership. Talked about Ben earlier. Ben's a musician. I've got 2 musicians on my leadership team, which means that if anything went wrong with the music teacher, I've got some backup in there certainly to cover anything to do with the GCSE classes. But we have structured around having specialist teachers in specialist areas, and I think we've got more now specialist teachers teaching specialist subject areas, and we've got very little non-specialist teaching specialist areas. It will never be perfect because we might need 50 hours of teaching in a subject area, and a member of staff's 45 and a middle leader is 40, so you've always got to cover the extra 10. If I brought in a specialist for that, they're going to have 30 hours where they're going to be teaching non-specialists somewhere else. We use that around other areas like PSE and Welsh Baccalaureate and other subjects alongside. We've tried to beef up our core subject areas because they are the bread and butter for us: science, maths and English, and they also, certainly science, very difficult to recruit capable people because there's just a lack of scientists coming through. I think in the last couple of years there's been something like 2 physicists come out of Wales teacher training. So as they're going, they're not being replaced, you know, and that's for the whole of Wales. So it is difficult. In terms of the second half of the question, we ended up with 3 more pupils coming up in year 7 than we had predicted prior to the Eston inspection. Obviously, we were really concerned that the Eston inspection might convince parents to move elsewhere. But we've done a lot of work with the primaries, and we do a lot of work with the pupils coming up. We do a lot of work on transition. We're out there. We get roughly around about just over 3/4 of our pupils from our feeders, but we also get quite a significant number from other schools that aren't in my catchment that choose to send their children to us. So when we lose to, so I have Cyfarthfa Park as one of mine, but a lot of the children who go to Cyfarthfa Park live nearer to Penydre than they do to and they've got family history going to Penydre, so you know it isn't as straightforward to just say that, you know, it's one of my feeders and they should come into me. But generally, the retention of pupils so far has been quite strong, and it was an area we were really worried about. So so yeah, and you know, I'm out and about going into the primaries as well, so just trying to build the links.
Yeah, that's great, because obviously when you're in special measures, it's obviously very difficult, so you need to make it attractive, because obviously we need the numbers there to get your budget back up, because the more money you have, the more things you can do, and hence, you know, teachers wanting to come and be a teacher in Cyfarthfa. Okay, thank you.
We're second biggest still. We're not far behind Penydre, but yeah, the more we get through, we've got...
Penydre bigger in numbers than Cyfarthfa? Wow. How many are in Cyfarthfa, in Penydre?
1,050. I'm on finance there, so I'm competing against Jeff here for Cyfarthfa to attract them.
Good grief. Well, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, nobody else has indicated to ask any questions, so therefore I'm going to move on to any comments or observations in relation to Cyfarthfa. No? Okay, therefore I'll make some comments and observations myself as the chair. Well, first of all, as I said, Lyndon and Gareth, thank you so much for coming along this afternoon. I think it's really important, as I said, you know, for us to hear it from yourselves really, rather than just, you know, reading it from a report. two remarks I'd like to make is one, obviously, Lyndon, the overview of progress to date. Critically, we can see that there are some key actions in there and the impact so far. I'd mentioned to colleagues previously, impact is so important because of, what Estin actually looked for. Gareth, you mentioned it about having the actual evidence as well. So that is so important. And obviously just telling us what's next as well, so we can see how the journey moves forward. And then Gareth, I think, for both of you, having that executive board, responsible for the PAP is so, post-inspection action plan is so important as well, so that you're mindful of it, you're keeping track of it, and supporting the school as a governing body as well and the head moving forward. So some good progress there, guys, much appreciated. Thank you so much for your attendance this afternoon. You are now free to leave the chamber. You're more than welcome to stay if you wanted to, but you're free to leave the chamber. Hopefully we'll catch up sometime in the future as well as this journey continues with you and the school. Thank you both. You're welcome. Thank you both. Colleagues, in relation to this agenda item, I'm mindful that we still have officers here as well with us. We have gone through the two key areas that we wanted to, and that was, looking at what progress was made on two particular schools. But are there any questions for any of our officers in relation to the report before I move on? Paul?
In relation then to the overarching report on this, I'd like to ask, if I can, about evaluation and self-evaluation. It seems as if we've got two expert domains here, so it seems as if it's a perfect opportunity, both BLA and CSC. We've had now four units, if I could call Tidusky a unit. 3 schools on Tidusky then who have gone through then critical reports then from Estin. In the 3 schools themselves, if I'm not mistaken, the head teachers had only recently been appointed and then inspection then followed. I just wonder whether or not any of our monitoring mechanisms then are picking up before head teachers are leaving, whether or not the schools are in need of additional support or guidance, because there seems to be a pattern emerging.
The schools, whilst we were disappointed that they went into follow-up, and I think Michelle was my portfolio lead at the time, they weren't unexpected to us. So the 3 schools, and certainly one of the schools that went in last year, the head teacher had the phone call. He'd been in post a week when he had the phone call. That school had been a cause for concern. We'd put a review in place. We'd done a lot of work when we weren't seeing the fruits of what we were actually putting in. So the schools hadn't been a surprise to us, and the work was already we were already undergoing that work when Estin came in. So it's not. We have regular meetings. We have regular meetings with CSC. We have our team around the school meetings when we discuss the schools, and those were our sort of flagged schools, our red flagged schools. They'd been red flagged, and we were working with them.
So can I ask whether or not the governing bodies themselves were aware of your misgivings at the time? Because again, there seems to be a theme emerging here of the leadership team from the governing bodies down, which are seemingly either unaware or not actually intervening to
the school that you've just scrutinised were told in March 23 of the situation if Estin were to come in. The 2 schools prior to the PRU is a slightly different connection, different scenario anyway. The other 2 schools, we had put additional governors into one of the schools anyway. It had come additional local authority governors. It had come forward to Cabinet to actually put additional governors in to support that school moving forward. And then it was the following term that we had the Eston inspection. So yes, we have had all the schools that have gone into follow-up have been party to our school improvement forums, which include, as you know, the governors.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Jeff.
Yeah, if I might. So following on from what Paul said, you often give an informal letter of concern to the chair of governors and the head teacher. Two parts to that. The first is, did those schools that you thought were of concern, do you get that letter of concern? And secondly, was there any letters of concern sent that then Estin, when they inspected, removed that concern?
Second part, no. Okay. First part, yes, I had sent. I'd sent informal and formal notices to one of the schools.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was a question, but I'd allow it,
Sorry,
Jeff, so it's all right. No problem at all, because we had moved on.
His hands,
We'd moved to comments and observations, but that's all right. He kindly got me water earlier, so I'm returning the favour.
Sorry,
You're all right.
Sorry.
Michelle, you're okay, you? Okay, all right, okay. Thank you, everybody, for your questions and comments this afternoon. Did you want to add something, sir? Oh, okay. You might just look at. I'm noticing the red mic, you see, so it's fine. Okay, thank you so much. I think we really did give that report a thorough scrutiny, and also our schools as well. We look forward to seeing, as I said, how those journeys progress in the future. So much appreciated. Thank you, guys. We'll now move on to agenda item number 4. Thank you so much to my colleagues from Central South for waiting so patiently as well. But inevitably, so important for you guys as well, as there were some questions relating to Central South support as well, so it was important. Gareth, I'm going to come over to you. We have this as an annual report, the effectiveness of Central South Consortia, and so I believe you're going to give us an update on the current position.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The effectiveness of the Central South Consortium. This report provides an update on the current position of the Central South Consortium, alongside the attendance at the Committee of Senior Officers from the CSC. As you will know, the local authority commissions the CSC to provide effective monitoring, challenge, support, intervention for school improvement for all schools. In order to ensure that improvement in outcomes continue, the local authority must continue to hold the CSC to account for delivering services that impact positively on standards. And this was recognised in the inspection report of the local authority back in January 2022. This report outlines the impact of work in the Central South Consortium's business plan on Merthyr Tydfil. It documents the impact of the challenge and support that is provided, and details of what's included is outlined in section 5.2 of this report. We want all schools across Merthyr Tydfil to receive the appropriate support and challenge to ensure sustained school improvement. We also want all schools in Merthyr Tydfil to have positive inspection outcomes, and officers from the CSC and local authority to work together to support and challenge all aspects of the school improvement journey. The recommendation is outlined in section 2.1 of the report. Scrutiny members to discuss the contents of the report and consider whether what information should be presented and noted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Gareth. And as I said, just to note as well, welcoming along Helen, Louise and Natalie to the meeting today. So on that note, I'll hand over and see if there are any questions from my colleagues online or in the chamber. Paul?
I've got one, if I may. A very comprehensive report. I wish it wasn't so. If I can go to page 18, please. There's reference then to the costs, which is obviously a considerable interest to us then, value for money then, in respect of the support given then to Merthyr. I just want clarification if I can. It says total core funding in 23-24 was 3.5 million, of which Merthyr contributed 223k, and then goes on that to say that an additional 110k was needed then for services required in Merthyr Tydfil. Could you explain to me then the funding structure? Is this a baseline, and then depending upon where we are, so for example, as we just highlighted then, if there's considerable work needed then to help schools then to restore their reputation and improve following Eston reports, whether or not then there's any additional cost. So what was the total cost then to Merthyr in 23-24 is basically my question.
I'm happy to come in and hopefully give sort of an outline of our funding, and then and answer the question about any additional funding if it's needed. We received core funding, and as you probably remember, previously we'd have received grant funding as well. Up until this financial year, 24-25, we no longer receive grant funding directly, but we receive contributions from grant that goes into local authorities called the Local Authority Education Grant. But in addition, we have that core funding that comes from local authorities. And over time, that has not been sufficient in order to be able to completely fulfil the requirements of the school improvement function as commissioned by each of the local authorities. And so with the agreement of all 5 of the directors of education across the 5 in the CSC, we've actually moved some of the costs to provide that school improvement into those grant funding streams or additional income that CSC generates, for example, from providing support for outdoor education to other local authorities outside of CSC, because that generates some income, and also potentially some bank interest income sitting on RCT's balance sheet as our host authority. So that's where we top up the additional funding that's required in order to be able to provide that complete package of school improvement for schools across Merthyr. Previously, we also had typically what we called a local authority annex. And again, we were able to identify grant funding that we could sort of earmark or ring fence to specific priorities that Merthyr Tydfil schools would have identified with the head of school improvement and the director of education as well. So that funding would have been there. Again, with the bringing introduction of the local authority education grant, that funding was no longer available, but because all the grant funding went into local authorities to be able to use for the priorities that they saw fit. However, we have still retained, again with the agreement of the 5 local authorities, a regional, what we call a bespoke support budget. And so therefore, where needs are identified over and above what we were already budgeted for, development plans, bespoke plans would be developed in conjunction with the school, with the improvement partner, with Helen as the principal, and in discussions with the local authority where additional funding is required to support those. So there is a regional budget for that, rather than having a specific local authority budget, which would be split via an IBA. That budget very much goes to where it's needed across the region.
So the question is, what was the total cost then to Merthyr in 23-24, please?
So contributions from the core contributions would have been the 223,645 for core contributions to CSC.
And that was it? It's not the 110,000 on top of that?
No, CSC used regional funding to provide the 110.
Lovely. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Paul. Colleagues, any other questions? Jeff?
Yeah, thank you. Point 7.2 of the appendix report on page 8, it states one school leader acted as leadership coach, another took the role of system leader, and others took part to support others within the report. My question is, were the schools reimbursed for those times when the leaders were out? And if so, were they reimbursed in full? And where would that appear on the school's budget form? Because I don't recall seeing it on there.
I'm happy to take that question, Chair. So yes, so any that whole section 7.2 is called Central South Wales Challenge Contributors, and any practitioners or any leaders across the region that support either regionally or individual schools are paid daily rates. So depending on whether that's a lead practitioner paid at £350 or £375 a daily rate, depends on the kind of work they do. System leaders are paid at £450 a day, etc. So those should more than cover any release costs for members of staff. As far as where it sits in school budgets, I can't answer.
It's Jeff, it probably goes in under income.
Income through CHAPS payments, yeah. I would have thought.
Sorry, yeah. So it comes under what? Sorry.
It's shown on the school budget line just as income.
Yeah.
But what we can do is we can get Joe, where you got income, we
Please.
can get Joe to actually break down what the income is. If that would be useful.
Yeah, that would be helpful. So, because I didn't see it in there when I looked, and I just need to know that it is in there. I don't dispute what the ladies are saying, but I just need to see it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? I have one from our colleague Lawrence, if that's okay, if you don't mind. Within the body of the report, it stated it is the requirement, the CSE is the strategic partner with the LA for delivering services that impact positively on standards. But there isn't reference in the report to the middle tier review. And why is that? Because inevitably, alternative measures will have to be put in place for the future of support of that because of the changes with consortia.
I'll answer that, Chair. It's the wrong
Sue.
year. This is for the academic year. The middle tier review won't impact until next year. So this is a summary of the activities that Central South have undertaken thus far. Moving forward, we will have that information will be there.
Thank you, because I think that's where Lawrence was coming from, is, what measures will have to be put in place for the future. Okay, so we'll pick that up then, perhaps when it's appropriate to do so. Okay. Colleagues, I'm just checking if there are... Oh, Michelle.
In regards to where we want to be in the report, so at 6.2, all schools in Merthyr to have positive inspection outcomes. So over the last 2 years, we've had some great results in Merthyr, results that we all are really proud of. Yes, we've had some blips, and I think we all know the reasons for that. And I think that we were fully aware of what the issues were. So I think that needs to be clear that, they were issues, but we knew what they were and how they were going to get sorted. So how confident are you now that the next round of inspections that are potentially coming up, for example, I'm sure there's quite a few schools that haven't been inspected since maybe 2017, for example. I know Dowlas is sitting on their nerves at the moment waiting to be inspected. How confident are you that they are going to have a positive inspection outcome? Or is there anything that we need to be aware of?
Thank you, Michelle. We are at a meeting at Dowlais tomorrow, so we'll be talking about where the school is. So yes, they've been waiting, you're absolutely right, for a while. In terms of the information that we have, we see that leaders and teachers have been working extremely hard in these schools. We've got improvement partners working very closely with the schools. And it's like any school, there will be positives, there will be elements that the school has to work on as well. It's very hard to predict and say that's what will happen when Estin arrive. But in terms of our reassurance, we can say that we work very closely with the schools, our improvement partners, the support that comes from Natalie's team with curriculum. We always make sure we work alongside the leaders, with them, and we make sure that the local authority are given any concerns ASAP of anything that we might be worried about. So those schools that we know are due. My improvement partners were in this week, they've been in last week. They're letting me know if they've got any little worries. I let Andrea know the same day. And if there's anything then we can do, we had a situation this week with a school, and I said, I think, you need to be aware of this, maybe we can help with that. So it's about us putting as much support in, having that knowledge and intelligence, keeping the local authority informed, and making sure if there's anything we can do, because obviously we want all those schools to have the best outcomes. But in terms of, I don't want to be giving confidential information, but we are seeing a lot of positives in terms of leadership, teaching and learning. As I said, things happen, staffing issues can happen and can have a bigger impact on a school, especially a small school. You just need 1 or 2 teachers away, and then there needs to be some extra support or different ways of working, but that's where we are at the moment.
Great.
Hope that answers as much as I can say.
Yeah, sure.
It does, yes. Thank you, Hal. Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay, nobody's indicated. We'll move on to any comments or observations. Paul?
Thank you. I note, but you said that considerable input has been there to self-evaluation then for some of the schools that needed it from Estin. I wanted it on record that I'm grateful for the help that's been given to one of the schools in which I'm associated with, because I recognise we wouldn't be in the position we are today, which is out of measures, if it wasn't then for the input of Andrea and also then yourselves then in CSC. But it did occur to me that a lot is dependent upon the quality of the improvement partners, in a way that a good or great head teacher then could turn things around. Much depends upon then the IP themselves. So that our IP has moved on then from the one that we had last time round, and I'm waiting with trepidation to see then who is going to be provided next. And I hope that they're as good as the last one, who I have to say was simply excellent.
Thank you, Paul, for that. And I recognise your comments there about the input that our teams had in collaboration and in partnership with the local authority. Considerable support was put in to assist that school to get the best self-evaluation and school improvement processes, and that takes time. And as you have noted, the improvement partner worked, as we always do, side by side with the head teacher, working with them. We always strive to do that, and that has reaped its rewards. We can see in terms of where the school is now. I've got a very strong team of improvement partners in Merthyr at the moment, and I can reassure you, your improvement partner that started from September with the school and with the Penydre cluster is very good and has had a very comprehensive handover from the previous improvement partner you referenced. And so I know the improvement partner's been in recently, has conducted some learning walks alongside the head teacher, some book scrutiny, some listening to learners. So there will be reports that go to the head teacher there that you as governors can access to. So yes, strengths, there are always going to be areas for improvement, and that's the collaborative discussion that takes place between the partner with the head teacher. And we always make sure, for example, this week with those learning walks, that's been carried out alongside the head teacher, and the head and the improvement partner themselves are observing together and coming to agreed judgments on what is good, what's strong in those classrooms, but what needs to be worked on. That's the way we work. Thank you.
Thank you, Hal. Thanks. Michelle.
Sorry, just one more little comment. I think it's important to note that the schools, when there was action short of strike, obviously had a massive impact on yourselves, which stopped you being able to go in and do what you do best. And I just think that needs to be recognised because it did impact on the way you were able to work.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. Nobody else has indicated to make any comments or observations, so just left really for me as chair to note what you've actually set out with regards to your own comments, and to thank you again, to Louise, Helen and Natalie, for one, always being here as a strong partner with the local authority as well, but for such a comprehensive report from yourselves, and obviously in partnership with our officers as well, that critical friend to strengthen, and help to improve standards for our children in Merthyr Tydfil is of paramount importance. So, just a note and a nod from me as well, and on behalf of my members, to thank you all for your continued support. It really has been so warmly received and so well structured as well, I have to say. Yeah, thank you. Thank you ever so much. Thank you. Okay, to my colleagues on my right, my officers, and obviously to our guests, you are more than welcome to leave at this point. You're not allowed. No, you are. I'm only joking. No, you can go. You can go. You can. No, you can go because we're doing the forward. You're tired, right. You? Okay. We have had Storm Bert over the weekend. You are allowed, Councillor Gareth Lewis. You have, and I'm pleased to note that our head, Sue Walker, is now talking to me as well for the change of time. So I'm pleased to note that. Thank you. Much appreciated, everybody. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you. Thank you, guys. You're welcome, Gareth. Take care. Maybe a hot chocolate is called for, Gareth, and a nice cutch, and then yes, you'll be Yes, I did say coaches. More than happy to offer free coaches. It'll be better tomorrow. Okay. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you for bearing with us as well. Some big agenda items there. We move on now to agenda item number 5, which is the forward work programme. Okay. Lots to discuss under the forward work programme. We have some additional items to consider adding to the forward work programme. One is around bullying. Maybe including a visit to some of our schools. So we'll just give that some thought and see if and when we can fit that in. You are the busiest scrutiny, I have to say. We really do keep each other on our toes, don't we? But it's all for the good. Elective home education is another one that we may wish to consider, and EAL. EAL is English as an additional language. So if you can give that some thought, okay, and then if we can, we'll just try and see where there's an opportunity to add some of these in, Jane, isn't it?
So EAL is April.
Yeah.
And the others are for the next cycle, I think.
Great, okay. So April for EAL, we're going to fit that one in, and the others are to consider for, gosh, forward work planning, the next round. All right, so we'll just keep mindful of those. Bullying, elective home education. Okay. In the next scrutiny in January, we have an item on community. Yes. Sorry, Dave.
Social services involvement as well, because this can overlap into social services and the referral strategy, because people not affay with that learning strategy sometimes make false referrals into social services. So that may be something we have to look at as well.
Thank you, David. We'll be mindful of that. I think what we'll do is we'll talk to Sue and Lisa next time I have my quarterly review with them as well, and we'll just cross that along Lisa's desk as well and just check so that she's prepared maybe then for the next cycle as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Claire.
Yeah, what have we got on for January the 13th then? Because you've got community focused schools and then it's additional report to be confirmed. Can we slot bullying in there? Because I think bullying really needs to be discussed.
I was just coming on to January. In January, we have community focused schools, and we're bringing in a head teacher, but we are having a 1 hour workshop at 4 till 5 and then having a scrutiny meeting. Bullying is going to need its own meeting, and I think we also need to do some school visits. So hence why it's a big subject, it's an important subject, and I think we just need to include that and not, not squeeze it in where we can. I think it just needs a little bit more time. But noted, Claire, thank you. But just to let you know that January we will have it. It will be a change. It'll be a 1 hour workshop 4 till 5, and then we'll be in the chamber 5 till 6 on community focused schools. Jeff.
Could I just ask now, is it the time perhaps to bring back the working group more able and talented pupils? Before we were struggling with the head teachers who are on action short of strike, and obviously it was difficult to get anything done. Could we consider that again, please?
I'm just giving it some thought. 2 seconds. I know that it was ongoing. It was rolling on, wasn't it? It was rolling on. So yeah, let's have a chat to Sue. Let's see where we can possibly put it in, and what that will look like. I don't want to say to you now, yes, we'll do it, Jeff, and it'll be a task and finish group, and then we can do some workshops. Let me just see what that'll look like and the most effective and efficient way to do that and hit on that subject. Is that okay with you?
Yep.
Similarly to Claire's request regarding bullying, let me see what that looks like, Claire, and then I'll come back to you and just say, look, it's going to be some school visits, it may be a workshop, so we can really hit home on that one then as well. Okay, I've nothing else to discuss with regards to the forward work programme as it stands at the moment. Just to remind you that my apologies, EAL will be added into our April meeting where we had a gap there. The other meetings are full, chock-a-block. Item number 6, scrutiny referrals. There have been no referrals. Item number 7, report recommendations. Well, I guess, guys, my question is, do we all feel that we addressed the recommendations in the reports today? And how do we feel we added value? Chair?
Oh, thank you for that. My mic's still on. I didn't have a question.
Sorry, Jeff, I thought you were eager to come in and give me some evaluation and feedback then. Okay, I'll open it out to everybody. Any particular comments or observations on how we added value today, how we felt we addressed the recommendations? Or would you just like me to just give you and me some feedback? Yeah, shall I do that? Okay. Look, I think you always do an effective job, I have to say. I think there was some really good questionings. There was some further drill down questioning as well. I think with Central South, we did have a very good report, didn't we? And then, you know, I think coming back and having some of the knowledge in the room as well with some of the further questions you asked was really useful. Did we meet the report recommendations? I think we did. Did we add value? Definitely, because what we do is we never let anything go, do we? You know, we come back and we say that we're going to follow something up. So we will see how T. Dusky are doing on that journey. We will see how that head is doing as he's further embedded into that role. With Lyndon, 2022, Rome wasn't built in a day. For a school of that size, with, you know, some of the challenges, etc., you know, I think we need to give them that opportunity and then come back and revisit that as well. So I think that's how we add value as a scrutiny. And then secondly, with regards to Central South Consortia, going back to Lawrence's question, we do need to look at what the future is now going to look like. So I think we need to bring that back and just be mindful of that as well, as far as that improvement partner, that critical friend, etc. Okay. Pardon? Yes. Now, I didn't know if you remembered, but as a local authority, we reduced our costs because of budget pressures over the years to them. And I think we did question them in the last round of scrutiny about, you know, the value for money, if you remember as well. So again, you do question them well, and you do add value to the to what scrutiny's processes are. So thank you for that. Okay, agenda item number 8 is feedback on any recent scrutiny activities. Well, we had an excellent workshop, I thought, a joint scrutiny workshop on the 19th of November regarding toileting. You know, my young people are 18 and 22 now, and I was trying to remember about the days of potty training, and some of us made comment that perhaps we didn't do it quite how it is done in 2024 or not, as the case may be. And learning, I think there was a learning curve for all of us there. What was important is that I feel we came away a little bit more knowledgeable. I hope you agree. I can see some nods, but we certainly came away a little bit more knowledgeable about what our health professionals do in the community, what our support staff do in social services, and really some of the, I think as well, there was a nod to, you know, some of the other impacts as well, cultural impacts on children coming into school, you know, welfare, health, a number of different things, cost of living impacts on children coming into schools. Yeah, there was, yeah, and of course there was the neurodiversity, wasn't there as well, Natalie, that we talked about as well, you know. So there was a lot of information, and it's certainly something that we will come back to and see if it has progressed. Come to you, David, in a second, because we were mindful of that data, weren't we? That data was really important that was shared with us in our workshop, so we need to come back to that. David.
Because of other matters, can we have, for those who didn't attend, some of the data passed through? Because it seems that we missed out, and I was going to ask anyway, but seeing you brought it up, and if possible, if they're available, perhaps we can do another workshop just to catch up on what some of the others didn't see then, you know what I mean?
Yeah. We're going to have the PowerPoint sent out to you, which had all of the latest information in there, and also some of the current work in progress to support, you know, our parents, our carers, our grandparents out there, you know, in this transition through to nursery as well. We looked at some of the data, and what we said in our scrutiny is that, you know, we want to revisit this once it's had time. So I guess probably in 12 months, we'll include it in next cycle forward work plan to look at how that data is now, then I should say, how it is now and how it hopefully will improve by then, because I think that in some respects, we really could have gone in so many different directions, because you're talking health, you're talking mental health and well-being, you're talking teacher support, etc. And for us as a Scrutiny, was critically looking at that, the impact on our teaching workforce. And I was slightly concerned that we were sort of slipping away from that, so I had to keep on bringing it back. But we slipped away because it was natural to do so, because it was such an important subject, such a wide, broad subject as well. But critically, we were there to think about, you know, the impact on our teachers and our support staff, and why we were seeing so many children present themselves. And we learnt a lot about, you know, what is accidental, what does change after a couple of weeks, and, you know, maybe toileting is good at home but not at school, because guess what, guys, this little person is now going into a whole new environment with big boy girl and boy toilets, and you know, mum or grandparent or dad not there to ask to go to the loo, but this new person who's their teacher or their classroom assistant. So we had to sort of put ourselves into the eyes of a child as well. And so it was really interesting, but we will revisit it. Okay, and we'll get those slides out to you.
If you could send me a copy. At the time, I don't think I was on Learning Scrutiny when it was booked, and so I was working, so that's why I missed it. Yeah.
We will do,
Yes,
Clive. We
thanks.
will do. Claire.
Yeah, I think everyone knows my views on it. I've got quite, I'm quite vocal about this, and I've got massive concerns. It's the same as I've got the massive concerns about the dentist, because, you know, brushing the teeth in school as well. Teachers are not parents, they're not there to do these things, and my concern is we are taken away from the education. So, you know, I think it's really important. I think when we do revisit it, Lisa, if potentially we could add not only brushing your teeth as well, because the school are going to be asked to do that at some point, teaching, and I just think everything needs to be brought in, because they're teachers and they're learning assistants. They're not corporate parents, because as a corporate parent myself, or what I work with, that's part of my job. They're not corporate parents. They're actually academic, educational. So, you know, it was wonderful. I welcomed it, and I would welcome if perhaps some head teachers could be invited as well, or some teachers from the nursery, just to give their point of view as well, because I think that's one thing we miss, actual teachers giving us their point of view as well. So, you know, like I had gone and visited, and I think it was Gareth, or was it yourself, Jeff, had gone to visit as well. Other people may not have, so yeah, but thank you ever so much, Chair. It was really good.
You're welcome. Thank you, Claire. And noted observations there as well. I think there's again a balance between some of those social aspects that we have to take into the school, and it does form part of the curriculum with personal hygiene and dentistry and things like that, you know, but it shouldn't overtake anything on the key focus, which is the teaching element, isn't it? Okay. Thank you, guys. Last but not least, agenda item number 9, any other business deemed urgent by my chair. Now, I'm going to tickle some of you by saying this, but our next meeting is Monday, the 13th of January. Now, there are a lot of colleagues in the room who I will see over the next couple of weeks, but some of our co-opted members I may not. So guess what I'm going to say? Have a very Merry Christmas, guys. One of my favourite times of the year, so I'm quite happy to say it. I know it may, you know, have some grinches or some grudges with some others, but please do enjoy the holiday season. Oh, there's the American in me. It's because I'm off to Disney soon, so enjoy the holiday season. I'm sure I'll see you before the 13th of January, and for my other councillor colleagues, I'll see you shortly. So thanks very much, everybody. Thank you so much for your attendance today. Thank you.